Welcome back to Loose Talk. Well, the Washington shutdown is over, the threat of a debt default has been removed, and everything appears to be going back to normal. But much like the armistice at Versailles that ended the Great War 100 years ago, there are a lot of doubts about whether this deal is going to keep the peace for very long.
Now that the government is reopened and this threat to our economy is removed, all of us need to stop focusing on the lobbyists and the bloggers and the talking heads on radio and the professional activists who profit from conflict, and focus on what the majority of Americans sent us here to do.
So the big question facing Washington, D.C. now, and probably the only important question in the immediate future, is whether the Republican fever has finally broken, or whether this is just another lull in the fighting. Well, there are two ways of looking at it. On the one hand, the Republican leaders, John Boehner, the leader of the House, and Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader in the Senate, have clearly understood very quickly that 16 days worth of government shutdown resulted in a 10-point drop for the Republican Party. The writing on the wall for them is very clear. They must prevent this from happening again. Even very conservative senators have been trying to distance themselves from those on the Tea Party side who are deemed responsible for this brinksmanship. And in a cable news interview, Orrin Hatch, one of the most conservative Republican senators, even went as far as to rebuke the Heritage Foundation, which has been the principal source of money for ideological conservative activity around the country. But on the other hand, you have people like Senator Ted Cruz, the Republican firebrand, who arguably started this whole shutdown crisis with a 21-hour filibuster in the Senate, have used this whole crisis to profit very, very handsomely, both in the polls and financially.
Mr. President, this fight was always about the American people who are hurting because of Obamacare.
Cruz, who's now a 2016 presidential hopeful for the Republicans, used the shutdown for a series of very effective PR stunts to boost his popularity, not least a moment where he stormed this World War II memorial behind me, which of course had been closed under the shutdown, with U.S. military veterans.
God bless each and every one of you.
And whilst most of Washington, and indeed markets around the world, are now singing their own version of Give Peace a Chance, there are many powerful figures for whom much profit lies in prolonging the conflict. At any rate, we're not going to have to wait too long to find out. We have three looming fiscal deadlines, one in December, one in mid-January, and the final, potentially most lethal one, in early February, again over the sovereign debt ceiling. Any one of which, particularly the last, could end this fragile peace. See you next time on Loose Talk.